Good morning, Professor Corti. Thank you for participating in this mock session of the Jean Monnet Network on EU-China relations, and specifically about your work on greening the common commercial policy, the carbon border adjustment. First of all, we would like to ask you, what is the carbon leakage in the context of the EU emissions trading system?
Well, the question is that in the fight against climate change, each country is following its own policy. So the European Union is particularly ambitious on that, and we have, for example, an ETS, which is a mechanism that permits us to create a reduction of carbon emissions, and basically, and the most important, is permit us to price the carbon by a system of alliances. What's the problem when you are so ambitious? The problem is that you are fixing your own rules inland in your domestic market, but we are in a global market with full of trade with many products. So all the times foreign products are coming into the European market, and these products are not under the rule of European Union ETS. So in this case, we have a real risk of carbon leakage. What is the carbon leakage? It's when a company decides to move their production to a place where the rules are less restrictive. So, for example, if you produce something that it's very intensive in energy, for you it's much more better to fix your production in a place where energy is cheaper, or where the rules in order to produce this energy, because you are allowed to emit more carbon, it's much more affordable for you. The second problem, and it's a problem that could be said that it's linked to the question of competition. I mean, not exactly competition in the sense of European Union law, but in the sense of industrial competition, is much more related to competitiveness. It's the case that when there are two products, one European that is produced under our rules and another imported that is produced under other rules, that are in the market at the same time. So the risk of replacement of the foreign product that is much more cheaper because it has been produced under rules that are less restrictive, it's very, very high. For this is that the European Union has launched in 2021 the idea of creating a border cost adjustment. And I think that you will be asking to me what is it about. It's a mechanism in order to introduce similar, not exactly the same, but similar rules to imported products. It's true that at the beginning, as you probably know, the border tax adjustment has been passed this year. In fact, it was in May of 2023, and it will be entering into force in October of this year, too, in 2023. But there is a quite long transitional period up to 2025. So during this period, all the products that are imported from other countries, and particularly the duty is on importers, have to declare not only the price of the product as is usual in all these proceedings, but also how many, what is the carbon footprint and how many carbon tons have been emitted in order to produce it. So the idea is that importers, when the transitional period ends, the importers have to pay a similar price that national, that European domestic producers. So it's true that the allowances are not exactly the same, but the price it's supposed that will be the same as the ETS, the European Union ETS internally. There are many problems about how it will work. The first one is just how we will make the accountability of these emissions, because there are many technical differences. And the second problem is what happened with those countries where they do have a system. It could not be exactly the same as the European one, but they do have a system for pricing carbon emissions. So what the border tax adjustment regulation says is that when the importer can prove that these emissions has been already paid in origin, so they don't have to pay twice. It's similar the idea of avoiding double tax imposition. So what's happened? The problem is how we can prove that the system in origin is really similar, is really equivalent to European ones. And unfortunately, I think that there will be many discussions about that. In fact, I am particularly interested in comparing, for example, the carbon market in China, which is one of our main trade partners, if we can really prove that this national Chinese carbon market is really compatible, is really similar to European ones. So in that case, European importers from Chinese products could avoid this double imposition. So this is basically, I know that the system is very complex, as I am just giving to you a very short explanation, but when we analyze it in practice, we have to say that there is a very long transitional period, as I said, up to 2025, and during this period, importers will not need to pay anything. So they just to register all the importations and the carbon impact of this importation, transmit this information to European Union, and so the European Union will test the system, how it works, without any economical payment, economical impact. And there is a second thing that I would like to underline is that the sectors to which this system, this border tax adjustment will be applied, are sectors that are very intensive in energy consumption. And these sectors, I'm talking about, for example, steel, I'm talking about, for example, hydrogen, I'm talking about, for example, electricity production. This system, up to now, many of them will be, we are getting allowances for free. So at this moment, European emissions in these sectors will not be pricing, in fact, because they were receiving so much carbon allowances for free that they will not go to the market in order to buy these allowances. So they were not paying for those emissions. So if our producers, we are not paying for emissions, we can not ask to foreign producers for paying for them. So in order to permit a similar situation, a compatible situation between importers and national producers, the European Union has started this year a reduction of these allowances for free in these sectors, and it is supposed that from 2025 we will have not a full reduction, but a quite important reduction of these allowances for free, but the really full provision of these allowances for free will not get up to 2035. So in fact, in practice, we have a quite long period up to 2035 in order to see how this system of border tax adjustments is working in practice. And so during this period, both national producers of these sectors and importers that have to pay or have to prove that there is a similar system in origin will have time for adaptation. So it will be a very slow implementation of the system. This is something that is quite important. And there is a second thing that I have to underline is the question of pricing, because when this proposal was made for the first time in 2021, the price of carbon ton was around 60 euros. Then it go down for regarding the COVID and the pandemic, and now it's rising up to 100. So if we have to pay the full price of our emissions, the carbon emissions, nowadays in Europe it's a quite high price of 100, which is something that could really harm this production.
Would like to ask you, is the carbon border adjustment mechanism compatible with World Trade Organization law?
This is a really tricky question, because since the beginning there were many discussions. Making some history. The first proposals, academic proposals of border tax adjustments came in 20 years ago. And since the beginning, many scholars said that it will never be compatible with WTO law. The problem is WTO law does not permit any kind of discrimination. So no discrimination between foreign products and domestic products, but also it includes discrimination between two foreign products coming from different places. The question is, could be considered discrimination when I allowed to enter one product for free because I consider that the system in origin is compatible with European Union ETS. For example, I'm talking about Switzerland. Switzerland has an ETS that it's almost very similar to European one, and the European Commission has said that it will be considered compatible with European Union ETS, so it will never need to pay anything as border tax adjustment. And I deny that from other countries. I will not mention anyone, but from other countries. So this is the problem. This is the first problem. And the second problem is that according to WTO case law, the discrimination, the discrimination allowed, you can, of course, you can make difference when two products are different. For example, it's not the same to buy a car than to buy a computer. But the discrimination cannot be based on the proceedings of production. It is known as the like product theory. The like product theory said that you cannot treat the different manner products that are alike or are alike. And when we are talking about when two products are alike, it's when they are physically, or the functions that they have are similar or are compatible. So since when we are talking about carbon footprint and when we are talking about how products are made, it's not a physical characteristic of the product. In principle, we can say that this system could be could have problems in WTO law. European Commission has said in the proposal there is a mantra phrase at the end which says this proposal has been designed in order to be compatible with WTO law, but it never explains why and how they could prove, they could give arguments for these statements. For sure, that's one country that will be denied the status of similar or compatible with our system will tackle the case under WTO law. But probably, and I am quite optimistic on that. Probably the real aim of the European Union Commission is to start a negotiation at WTO law in order to permit, by diplomatic ways, in order to permit a convergence between our system and other system, between our ETS and other carbon markets. And basically, this is the position of China. In fact, China has recently asked for start negotiation at WTO law in order to reduce the risks of incompatibility between the two systems. For sure that China, I think, what it really wants is to reach the status of compatible with EU ETS.
Thank you for your interesting contributions and for participating in this project. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you to you. Thank you for the invitation.